So I'm recording now, and Drew, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Pablo. For the sake of the listeners, we could do this in Spanish, but I don't think they'd appreciate my thick accent, so we'll stick with English for that.
Most of them probably wouldn't, but you never
Yeah,
know.
I will say, like when I text, I sound like baller in Spanish, but it's just because I can always like Google a word if I don't quite know what to say.
Right? You can always just Google translate
Right.
whatever word.
Unfortunately, that doesn't work in the real world quite yet, but
Not soon. Soon, I'm sure.
For those that might wonder, Pablo and I worked together for a couple of years in New York City a couple of years ago, and we hung out. We had fun hanging out, and so a little about me. My name's Drew. I'm 34 years old, single, living in Phoenix, Arizona now, working at an accounting and consulting firm. I've kind of done that type of work for about 10 years. From the Chicago area originally, grew up in the suburbs. So sort of if you know those 1980s John Hughes Chicago suburbs movies like Ferris Bueller and Risky Business, that was kind of where I grew up. Not quite the North Shore money, but that scene. And I love Chicago's, especially with the winter, is a pretty brutal place. But I love getting there in the summer, and it's a gorgeous city. I mean,
I never realized that Chicago actually has a much, much harsher winter than New York City.
oh, big time, yeah. I mean, New York's cold in the winter. Chicago's harsh. That's a big difference.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I moved here, and then everyone's telling me, "Oh, just be glad it's not Chicago."
Yeah, absolutely. I think just I'd imagine the ocean in New York just kind of keeps things relatively mild.
Well, God bless that ocean. So wait, so you're actually from the New York area?
No, grew up in the Chicago area.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so I grew up in the western suburbs, a city called Naperville, pretty big suburb, about the third or fourth biggest city in the state. And, growing up, pretty much every year, CNN would call Naperville the best place in America to raise a family. And, it kind of reminds me of that movie Pleasantville with Tobey Maguire from way back.
Yep.
But there's a lot of it that's true. I mean, the public schools were excellent. There was no crime. There was a downtown area that was pretty fun. A lot of sports leagues, a lot of arts. So, it's so trendy to like rip suburbia and think, oh, it's just but it was cool. I had a lot of fun during childhood. I could ride my bike. My parents didn't have to worry I'd be getting in trouble or anything. But as I'm saying this, I'm very aware that like there was a really powerful article written a couple of years ago by an African American man about like, here's what it's like to be black growing up in Naperville. He said he'd like always get pulled over by the police for no reason at all. He was like an honor student, but they still,
Racial profiling.
right. It's not the out and out racism because it's not the Deep South in the 1960s or anything, but it's that subtler form. But yeah, so I grew up in a great town, kind of the youngest of three. I was very fortunate. Parents are college educated. Parents are still married. That's kind of a big factor in having a great life.
Right.
Parents went to every sporting event with me, helped me with homework and all that. I'd say what certainly made my life unique growing up is the youngest of three. The oldest was kind of, future valedictorian, Harvard and all that. But the middle, who was, there was 5 years between the oldest and me. Aaron was the oldest, and the middle one, 2 years older than me, Lindsay, she had Down syndrome. And, it didn't severely affect the day-to-day life. I mean, she went to similar schools to me. She had a one-on-one aide with her. She had her bowling league and her dance class. So, day to day, we had, it was not the families who have the children with severe special needs that need to be monitored all the time. That sounds pretty interesting. So this was, Lindsay could be left alone in the basement and watch TV and it was all good. So, I certainly think it was, it was very stressful on my parents. My mom had to work some to get some money, but also had to raise three kids. And Lindsay had 4 heart surgeries when she was younger. So yeah, that was tough, but things were pretty normal until, the summer of 1999, everything was normal. And then, Lindsay had to go to the hospital for a few days. She wasn't feeling well, but then they were about to release her. Um, but then, out of nowhere, on like a Saturday morning in June of '99, Lindsay passed away. It was, they called it sudden kidney failure.
Oh, wow.
And most people with Down syndrome live into their 30s or 40s or longer. This was all very unexpected. It was Saturday morning. I was at a swim meet in the neighborhood. My parents were there, even though Lindsay was at the hospital, because it was all everything was normal, and they were going to go get her in a couple hours.
Right.
Leave suddenly because her condition got worse. The neighbor drove me home. I was upstairs, and my parents and my other sister came in the house, and they said, you need to come downstairs, and I instantly knew something was wrong. They'd never that's just not how we rolled. If they came in, we would just say hi from upstairs or whatever and go about our way. So she passed away that day. And then my sister Erin went to college a couple months later. So that was kind of one difference starting eighth grade. Yeah, eighth grade became an kind of only child right away. But we'd been in Naperville for so long. We had a strong support network, a strong church network supporting us. I can't ever fathom what it's like to lose a child, but I think at least, we had a very strong support system around us, and that made a huge difference.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And one, I'm very sorry to hear that. Right, that's got to be a tough loss. Um, and two, how do you think that event drove to who you are today? Like, how did that affect you moving forward?
I think about that a lot. I mean, I think it's like, it's weird. It's like, there'll be, I'd say I get sad about it maybe 1 or 2 days a year. Um, I think one thing that's surprising now is like, and my sister's married with kids. It does surprise me, like over the last 8 years, 10 years, like her name doesn't get mentioned a lot. Maybe it's just sort of awkward for anyone to bring up. Her photos are, of course, still around the house, but it's just,
Right.
yeah, I think that's, how do you, I don't know what other people do. Like, do they still talk about people that passed away 20 years ago? Maybe less and less as the years go on. As terms of how it affected me, I just say the biggest thing is, what's the best way to put it? I really do love hanging out with people, but once I get to a point where the gas tank runs empty, like I'm always the first one to leave a party and go home and chill by myself. And maybe that kind of happened there when I went from being like the youngest of three to an only child, where I do that is something that's just, I don't love that trait about me, but it's just how it is. For whatever reason, like I always after I don't feel comfortable hanging around in groups for too long. Pablo knows I love texting people. I love doing a lot of one-on-one stuff, but I am someone who sort of like runs out of social fuel fairly quickly and just kind of likes to uh, be on my own. That's kind of been like that a lot.
No, it's funny that you say that because I've been very fortunate for most of my life to not have to not have to have experienced death
Mhm,
um, until last year, and I will. It was a roller coaster of emotions last year because
mhm.
a good buddy of mine, his sister passed, and while I wasn't close to her, I was close to him, right?
Right,
So
right, right.
it affected me a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then literally just a month or 2 later, or maybe a little bit longer, one of our mutual best friends decided to take his life.
Mhm,
And you know, there was a mourning period, right, where you are sad and you think about the memories and all that good stuff, but moving past that, the way we, at least in my circle, have dealt with that is just talking about him as if he was still here almost,
mhm,
and acknowledging that, oh man, if Chris was here, he would be blackout drunk right now with us,
mhm. Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
Right.
but again, that's a very different relationship, right? We were all friends. I can't
Mhm.
imagine a sibling and somebody that you know so well.
Right. Right. And but then it also is because she was special needs, it's not it I thought about that, like it's just not a similar situation as other people that might have lost a sibling, So that
Right.
makes it different.
No, but
I
that's
would say like it definitely, I do think some families when they lose a child, major divorce and all that stuff, and that did not happen with our family.
no, it's awesome that you had the support system around
Yeah,
you to
right.
help.
Right. We'd lived in the same house for 8, 9 years. We had a lot of neighbors we were close to. So we had, yeah, within Naperville, there was a lot of people that, got us through that.
No, that's cool. So after
Yeah,
after
that was like, seventh, eighth grade. High school, I was involved in a lot of activities. One thing, and, I kind of mentioned this a bit earlier. I guess one regret from high school is a lot of time spent trying to get the cool kids to hang out with me and you know, not really being grateful for the friends I had, not maybe sort of, oh, maybe I'll hang out with you. I want to see what other options come up first. So that is sort of, as I mentioned earlier, that's probably one story of high school that I regret and wish I had done differently. Just really been wiser about, who I should pursue friendships with, but also be much more grateful about the people that wanted to hang out with me and not always try and do, be social climbing.
why do you think that's such a common thing for people to either want to be like someone that they think is cool or that they want to spend time with someone that they think is cool?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's so funny. There is one kid who, he wasn't ever, no one was ever bullying me, but no, he never made any real effort to be friends with me. But then, like, after college, he called me a bunch, and I was like, wait, like, you blew me off in high school, and now we're hanging out, but what causes that? I don't know. Probably just insecurity. Think
Did he need a kidney? Is that what it was? He was
who's
calling you
that's probably what's coming. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably just insecurity. I think everyone to some extent feels they're not cool enough, not popular enough, and then they're hoping that if XYZ person hangs out with them, then it'll change. And I mean, even the same with women. I basically blew off some women who now I see them and they're stunning, they're doctors and all that, but because they like weren't part of the cool kids, cool. I was like, nah, I'm gonna go pursue this cool girl that's not interested in me. So I think, I certainly had friends in high school, but I think that was definitely a regret of high school. Just too much time spent pursuing friendships with people that didn't really care one way or another.
Yeah, I think it's natural for everyone to kind of have some of those regrets of high school or even, going into college, but I also I also acknowledge the fact that in high school, I mean, you're so young, right? And
Right,
your
right, right.
hormones are probably controlling you more than your brain is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't remember ever thinking that there were cool kids, but I do remember being jealous
Right.
of certain groups because they seem to all know each other and all live around each other and all kind of be in that ecosystem.
Uh huh.
It,
Were
it,
you was your high school majority white or was it pretty racially diverse?
oh, it was majority
Okay.
white, and a lot of the kids that I looked at and saw that all lived around each other or knew each other. I mean, they all lived in like nicer neighborhoods.
Right, right,
And
right.
me being the immigrant that I am, we lived in a very poor section of town.
Uh-huh.
So there was just no way that I could ever be friends with them because they would all, have Xbox Live and have a
Right.
nice house, and they would have people over because they can fit more than 10 people into their house. Meanwhile, I'm in a two-bedroom apartment with 5 people in it,
Yeah.
and I'd be lucky to fit in 3 people, right?
Right. I mean, it's just I certainly felt because my family did not have, we grew up and I look at it in hindsight like so comfortable, but because we didn't have Colorado ski trip money, I thought we were poor or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
surroundings. And yet this family at our church, super wealthy, lived in a huge mansion, and like they didn't give the slightest hoot about money. Their three kids, like they basically all do like social work type jobs, and like they live in a huge house, but they don't really buy much, and they're like they donate most of their money. It's like it's just crazy that some of the people that do have a ton of money like care about it a lot less than the people who are merely middle class or whatever. It's fascinating, certainly.
Yeah, so, the last person, my friend Luis, the last person that was on the podcast, he actually owns his own company, and he does financial advising, so he plays I don't wanna say plays, but he invests, his customers' money,
Right.
and he was telling me that he heard a CEO talk about 3 levels of wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them is when you don't care how much your meal cost. That's your first level of
Yeah.
being wealthy. Your second level is I don't care about my monthly bills because I know I can afford them,
Mm-hmm.
like rent, mortgage, all that stuff. Who cares? And then the
Right.
third one was fuck you money.
Right. Right.
Basically,
Right.
it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But while that is seemingly true, I also would have to say that for those that don't have a lot of money, every
Mm-hmm.
penny counts,
Exactly.
and you want more of it, right? And it can bring happiness because then you feel more comfortable, you feel more secure.
For sure.
And once you are and I don't wanna say that that family that lived in a mansion or in a large house, inherited money or anything like that,
Right.
but if you're born into that, then all of a sudden money kinda just doesn't bring happiness, right? It's about self-fulfillment. And I
Absolutely.
and I
Totally
do
agree.
think that while money isn't necessarily, the source of happiness, money can bring happiness.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and it's sort of like where's the line? That the first
Right.
you talked about the three levels, and the first one's the restaurant. That reminds me of a joke Adam Carolla told. He said, "Growing up, I was too poor to go to Outback Steakhouse. Now I'm too rich to go there."
I mean, dude, I'm in that same spot now. I mean, I
Right.
remember in college, I was like, "Oh my god, we're gonna splurge. We're gonna go to Applebee's. We're
Yeah.
gonna get a meal." And now I'm like, "Why the hell would I ever go to Applebee's?"
Yeah. You better not. I guess that's one sponsor you're never gonna have, but that's all right.
Oh yeah. Also, Applebee's is great. So come on, and sponsor
Be
this
good in the
podcast.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
It is. It's wild. I have something I sort of just call the Chipotle litmus test, where like a lot of people that make 140K go to Chipotle for lunch, and a lot of people that make 40K go to Chipotle for lunch. And it's fascinating how much more and how much less a meal at Chipotle means to two people next to each other in line.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I'm that's kind of how I am with McDonald's.
Mm,
Um, I grew up eating McDonald's. It's a cheap meal. It's
right.
also a guilty pleasure of mine.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, same thing. I mean, now that I'm comfortable and I live in New York City and I don't need to eat quote unquote cheap fast food, I still go in there
Right.
and I still enjoy the hell out of it. But it's not because I need to save money, but it's just a simple pleasure.
Hmm. And I guess that's something, that's certainly something we share, you and I, for those listening. An background and an interest in Mexico. Obviously, Pablo with his family heritage, and with me, it was just kind of an interest that developed in high school. I was got really Spanish class came really easily, and then I started watching some like movies I liked. I spent a semester in college, a summer in college in a smaller Mexican town, and then I spent a couple years in grad school in Mexico City from like 2009 to 2011. And of course, the question I got from everyone, all the other students in my program, they were all pretty much, upper middle class. But all their questions, why'd you come to Mexico? We're all trying to get into grad schools in America. What are you doing here? I got that. But it's so fascinating how Mexico that I experienced. It was basically, some version of sort of the Fantasyland Mexico, where I got to know some wealthy people, and they would take me to their parents' beach house and all that. And it's just so fascinating. Something that I've gotten a lot of pleasure from. Mexico. It's something that also millions of people have had to escape for reasons of severe poverty. So I guess
Right.
your parents, they've been here what, 30 years now, maybe, or longer.
Yeah, so I moved here when I was about 7 or yeah, around 7, so we've probably been here for almost 30 years, yeah.
Mm. Do you think which country do you think they identify more with now, Mexico or America?
Oh, man.
Loaded
I
question.
I could talk to you about this for 3 hours.
Right.
They without a doubt take pleasure in saying that they are American citizens.
Awesome.
So they are balls deep into the Americana, like pro America, America
Right.
number one. Um, yeah, they're balls deep in that.
Yeah, and you certainly saw that in the election. A lot of a surprisingly high number of Latinos voted Trump. You know,
Yeah, so
shocked by that.
from 2016 to 2020, Trump increased his support among Black people, Hispanic people, and Asians.
Right.
What does that tell you?
I mean, I think it tells you there's a lot. America's got a lot to work at, but it's also a country where a lot of people are trying to immigrate. And I think a lot of people who grew up here comfortably take a lot of it for granted. It's a tough
Oh yeah.
to say. America needs to do better, but we also like live pretty great. That's people are tough at juggling two sides. That's what you have. You kind of the pro America crowd, and then you have the woke crowd on the left. Let's say like you know, yeah. I mean, America. One thing that's awesome is there's 40, 50 cities in America where you can be a nurse practitioner and make 100 grand. That's crazy. I mean, look at countries like South Korea. Pretty much the whole country revolves around Seoul, and you got to live there in a tiny apartment if you want to have a decent career. Mexico, it's got maybe 3 or 4 or 5 cities, but for the most part, if you want to be a strong professional, you have to be in 1 or 2 cities.
Mhm.
America's got 10 or 15 cities that are great if you want to be a up and coming coder. There's a lot of great about America and a lot that we can try to fix. But it is going back to the earlier point that is fascinating to hear. Parents have really embraced it, even though it's required a lot of hard work on their part. But
I was gonna say, I don't think it's a requirement to pick a side, right? You
uh-huh,
can love this country and literally brag about it, but at the same time, join, some nonprofit to go help lower income people, right? Because it still has a lot of problems.
exactly. Yeah.
And I think that that's where I usually end up is I get in trouble with both sides because my right wing friends, when I tell them everything that needs to be fixed and everything that's wrong, they're like, "Oh, well, if you don't like it, then move out of here," right?
Right.
And then my left wing friends, I can sit here and be like, "Dude, America's the greatest country ever." And they're like, "Oh, well, you don't know about the problems." And it's like, ugh, why
Huh.
not? Why not embrace all of it and be proud to live in a great place?
Mhm.
Where we do have the opportunity to fix a lot of these problems, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's just it's good and bad, but I think ultimately, I'm very fortunate, and I think you'd feel the same way that you can be born here, especially because if you want to spend time in other countries, being an American, opens doors to allow you to do that.
How did you feel in Mexico? How did the people treat you? Because you were there for what, 3
2
years?
years, yeah, like 29 to 2011. Perfectly fine. I mean, never felt. But again, I just didn't have the most prototypical Mexican experience. I lived in a trendy young professional neighborhood, and I didn't have any kids and no family, and I was just living off. I got a really generous scholarship, so I didn't really have to worry about money while I was there. I had a pretty easy life, and that's why, like, and I think it's like this with a lot of lower income. And I think Mexico is not truly a poor country. I'd call it kind of middle income country. But most countries on earth, even ones that struggle financially, have a few neighborhoods that are super well off.
Yep.
I had more. and this because of the very low cost of labor in Mexico, I had more kind of luxurious experiences there than I ever had growing up in a well-off suburb. Before Uber, one of the most eye-opening experiences was it was 1 or 2 a.m. at a bar. We weren't sure. Oh, anyone want to call a taxi? And one girl's like, oh, "I'll just call my family chauffeur." You know, I'm a broke grad student and I'm getting chauffeured home in a nice town car.
Unreal.
So that's I had a very Fantasyland experience in Mexico. Um, as far as why I think it's great, of course, the beaches. And it's stereotypes are often right. I could be in a crazy urban city like Mexico City in 3 hours. I could be at a gorgeous beach near Acapulco. People have to plan for months for an Acapulco vacation from America. For me, it was just a weekend affair, and I found a decent $30 hotel. So the beaches were stunning. The weather's great. The street food is outstanding.
Did you ever get sick eating the street
Oh,
food?
absolutely, yeah. And just like I went to a really fine dining establishment, Hooters. That's right, Hooters. Watching football, and I drank the ice water that they put on the table, and got rather sick from that. So sure, I got sick. Not as much after the first couple months. And what was really cool, people don't, a lot of life, like we said, there's good and bad, two-way streets. A lot of my closest friends were other young professional Americans in their mid 20s in the same boat as me. A lot of people on Fulbright scholarships. So a couple of people from my undergrad in Chicago that were there. So I had half of my friends were Mexicans, again, from kind of more upper middle class backgrounds. Half were other Americans. We had both the Thanksgivings I was there one time. I went to an English speaking church there, so we had a big Thanksgiving dinner. Another year, the Americans our age hosted Thanksgiving. I had a lot of fun experiences. It was great.
Did you guys eat tacos for Thanksgiving?
No, we did the old fashioned stuff. There's an American guy there who owns a barbecue restaurant, but next week he's selling like you can take it home, American Thanksgiving meal. And that's what I wrote my master's thesis on, was the American experience in Mexico. The main kind of one of the main department stores was founded by Americans. Yeah, and when I was there most recently, you go to some of the trendier neighborhoods and it's all American tourists. I mean, of course, you have the Denzel Washington movie Man on Fire, all about the kidnapping epidemic in Mexico.
Right.
I think that was more of like an early 2000s thing. It's not as much of an issue the last 10 years. Fortunately for Mexico City, the drug wars pretty much stayed out of Mexico City.
Yeah.
The last 10 years, a lot of luxury travel magazines and websites have written about Mexico City. So you'll find a lot of trendy European and American tourists there in Mexico City nowadays. Again, it's heartbreaking how the city of Morelia in southwest Mexico, state capital, gorgeous old cathedral. No, none of us should be visiting there. It's just not safe. My college 15, 20 years ago had an exchange program there. We don't anymore. So sadly, because of the drug war, a great deal of Mexico is much more unsafe than it used to be, but Mexico City itself is a very trendy cosmopolitan city. So I just love. It was fun. It was kind of a 2-year vacation. It was fun, and I made 4, 5, 6 great friends I stay in touch with, and it was great. And the fact that I can just go there and travel around Latin America and speak Spanish well enough to get around is a blessing. So that's great. It was fun, and yeah, I'm very glad I did that.
It's amazing that you get to do that because I know a lot of people would never take the plunge
Right,
to experience something like that, and two, some of the people that do want to have that experience aren't able to, right? So
right.
you were able to do it, and you had the balls to go out and say, you know what, Mexico for 2 years, let's do it.
Yeah, and certainly tough at times, the loneliness. I had classes at night, didn't always have a lot to do or people to hang out with during the day. But at the end of the day, I'm very glad I did it. Uh, and so, I've been in the workforce for about 10 years since various consulting firms. And, I'll be blunt, I have not hit a home run. I've not found the one company that I thrive with. I've been with my current one a year and a half now. It's going well. Again, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the most surprising thing to me about the workforce that I'm much more adjusted to now than I was 10 years ago is, unless you're starting your own business or kind of on your own in some way, so much of what you do in work is do exactly what you're told to do. My current boss is super friendly, but my entire day, every single day, is she IMs me once an hour, tells me what report to make. I make it. She IMs me again, and that's fine. My lot, like, I sit in my Phoenix apartment in air conditioned, listening to music and working, and I look to my
Right.
and I see construction workers in 115-degree heat working in the summer. So I know I'm super grateful for my current job. Hope to kind of start moving up the management ranks in the years ahead. But again, that's been an adjustment. I certainly think, with school, it's like, all right, you get an assignment in class, you got 4 days to do it. In the workforce, you get an assignment, you have 40 minutes to do it. So, I mean, that's been a challenge of mine that I've been trying to continue to work at, is when I get a task, getting on it right away, because that's something I've struggled at and I'm trying to get better at. But I think it's important to acknowledge your shortcomings and say that, hey, this is a weakness of mine. I'd like to get better at it, and go from there.
That's awesome that you do that because I am still in that college mindset. So whenever I get a project, I don't think, "Hey, I need to knock this out." I think, "All right, what did I do in college? Oh yeah, I would go to McDonald's, I would go out, I would go do whatever."
Uh-huh.
And then last minute procrastination.
Yeah, man. I had a lot of work to do yesterday on a Sunday afternoon because of that. To be fair, I was this was like a side gig for my job. My main
Okay.
job was super busy last week, so I couldn't do my side gig. So it was very college esque, doing work at 10 p.m. on a Sunday night.
Oh man, I remember those nights. Yeah, no, it's
But today was chill. Today was a very normal work day. I woke up at 6:30, took a walk, worked from like 7:15 to 4, and then just went to the gym. Today was great. And the rest of, tomorrow, the rest of the week's looking great. So I'm very, I'm well aware that there are immigrants who work 16, 18 hours a day at a bread factory, killing themselves. And I'm very aware how lucky I have it to be able to sit at my desk, and definitely very grateful for that aspect of my life right now.
no, and it's really good that you recognize that. I know for I know I recognized that because growing up, my parents had the shittiest jobs.
Right.
I, growing up, had pretty shitty jobs, and I know what the income levels are for all of those shitty jobs.
Hmm.
And something that I am grateful for is during this pandemic is that I don't have to work those shitty jobs where, 1, you're not getting paid enough, 2, you would probably get laid off immediately as soon as the pandemic hit,
Right. Right.
and 3, even if you do survive and have to work, you're putting yourself in danger, and you might, if you're lucky, you might make an extra dollar an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, people it's easy to sit down and bitch about your job or bitch about something silly or, "Oh, man, I can't go to the bars after 10 PM. What the fuck?"
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to recognize that there are also real issues out there.
No, I'm so fully aware of that. It's I and maybe the richest man on earth, Warren Buffett, said basically the same thing. But the main reason I am where I am, is because I was born in a two-parent married household, white, in Naperville. My dad had an engineering degree from maybe the best engineering school in the world, Purdue. That explains so much of my success. I guess one thing that's I'm fascinated by your story is, because you didn't grow up in a household with parents with, quote, office jobs, professionals, a elitist word, we'll say office jobs, computer focused jobs, because you didn't grow up around that. um, did you have to seek that out, or did it just sort of happen naturally? Because
Um,
you see that in New York. Well, I'm an iBanker because my dad's an iBanker. I'm a lawyer because my dad was a lawyer. Your situation is obviously, you purely from an income level are certainly at a higher income level than your parents were. So is that, did it happen naturally or did you have to seek that out?
I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I would be where I am today.
Right.
I never seeked it out, and I mean, everybody that knows me will tell you that I am probably one of the luckiest people ever.
Yeah.
As in, I literally fall into good opportunities and I fall into the hands of good people. And I acknowledge that I myself have not done anything out of this world. I have not done anything spectacular to deserve where I am. It is simply opportunities that have come and that I have been fortunate enough to walk through. And in respects to my parents not having desk jobs, that was probably the biggest hurdle for me mentally because
Uh,
when I finished high school, I had no intentions of going to college.
well, that's crazy because where I grew up, it was 100% opposite.
Mm.
How did you end up going to college then?
My parents literally forced me to go.
Okay.
They told me, "If you don't go to college, then you're gonna start paying rent. You're gonna have to, like, pay, your fair share of the groceries. You're gonna have to do this, you're gonna have to do that.
Right.
We're not gonna support you." Um, and I was working already, right? I started working, I think, when I was, like, in 8th grade.
Uh,
So, for me, it's like, "Okay, well, I'm already working. If I c now that I'm finishing high school, that means I can work even more, and if I
and
work
make money.
more, that means more money."
Right.
And, God bless my parents, man, because I put them through hell a billion times, but they literally told me, "No, you have to at least take some classes at community college." So
Uh,
that's what I did,
right.
and,
And so
it took
was there a point when you're like, oh, okay, I'm glad I'm not digging ditches. I'm glad I'm moving towards the office route. Was there an age when that happened?
maybe my 2nd to last year of college because I actually ended up going to college for 8 years. Um, but I think it was the 2nd to last year
Hmm.
when I started my quote unquote university
Right.
that it kinda hit me like, "Oh shit, I'm going to a university. This is really cool. I'm gonna party and then I'm gonna come out and get a good job," right?
Uh,
And that's when it kinda started to hit me.
hmm.
But the reality of actually getting a desk job didn't hit me until the last semester, I
Hmm.
think.
Okay.
Because then I started to notice that while I was having fun and enjoying the college experience, everybody else had internships.
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Huh."
What's an internship?
Right. I was like, "I've been working at a grocery store, I've been working at a pizza joint, I've been working at a restaurant. What do you mean you guys are getting paid to go downtown at a Bank of America office or a Wells Fargo office
Right.
or an actual, corporation office and get work experience and get paid, right?" Like, that didn't compute. And
And you know what?
so
What I love about office jobs? Nights and weekends off. Like I'm a very creature of habit. Like I love knowing that, like, hey, I'm going to be free after 7, and I'm going to be free pretty much every Saturday and Sunday, and that's dope.
yes, I remember so many times where I would have to close a pizza shop on a Saturday or on a
Oof.
Sunday.
At like 3 or
Uh
4 a.m.
Yeah, and it depends, right? Because if you work in the university area, without a doubt, you're gonna be staying up late.
Right.
Um, Grocery stores, you get better hours because they close at a certain hour. No, but yeah, I mean, look, I've said this a million times. I'm lucky where I am, and I do not take for granted the desk jobs that I've had or
Hmm.
maybe will have. Because like you said, the benefits, you get nights off, you get the weekends off. A lot of these bigger
Paid holidays,
companies pay holidays, 401k match,
paid
if
vacations, you know.
paid vacations. I mean, the benefits are there.
Yeah. I mean, I think
So,
that's something I just definitely saw in you is even if a manager would frustrate you, you weren't confrontational solves nothing, you know.
right.
Right, like we all do, complain over beers. That's healthy. That's normal.
Yep.
you never were confrontational, and because of that, you did well. And I think so many people can't control their temper that way, and they get stuck in their careers because they let their anger get the best of them.
Yeah, I think emotional intelligence is actually one of my biggest strengths, and something that I notice in almost any job, where if you can control your emotions and know how to deal with people, if you know how to deal with people's emotions and needs and desires, that's what managers do, right? They're good at kind of controlling that scenario and putting a resolution to whatever the issue may be.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's
I guess one thing I'm curious, and we'll kind of get wrapping up, and I'll answer this too. I'd love to hear your answer though. Where do as cheesy as it is, outside of work, what's something that like you hope you spend a lot of time doing in the next 5 years?
something that I want to be doing.
Not necessarily accomplish, but
Right,
what
right,
what you
but
want.
actually actively do it.
Right.
One, this podcast.
Awesome.
Um, you are guest number 14, I believe,
Great.
and there has not been a guest that comes on that doesn't at least teach me one thing,
Hmm.
whether it's a perspective or a new viewpoint or simply a fact, right? Um, I am so fortunate to have met so many great people in my lifetime
Hmm.
that I love to just chat with them, give them the platform to tell their story, their viewpoints, their ideas. And I hope that I'm doing this a lot in the next 5 years. And I think the other thing is doing more stand up comedy.
Hmm.
I
I would. That sounds scary, man. Scary.
trust me, I almost never did it. I I I took a course, and the course is not even a course. It's a workshop. So you show up and they're like, "All right, get up on stage, say something." And I was like, "Wait a minute. This is not what I signed up for. I wanted somebody to teach me, not push me onto a stage and do it, right?" And I vividly remember the second class, um, because our class was so big, not everybody got to go up and present their material. On the second day, I literally thought I could literally just go to the bathroom and just not go back in. And then that way nobody will know who I really was. I'm
Uh,
okay losing the money.
right.
I just don't like there's 20 strangers in this little room and you want me to go up there and do stand-up comedy when I've never done it before. Um, but thank God my balls dropped before that happened,
Mhm.
because I went up, performed, and afterwards we all got a beer and they were like, "Dude, that wasn't half bad. Like, how long have you been doing this?" And I'm like, "Hey, that's
Wow.
literally my very first time."
Wow.
Um, so I got to perform. I've done a couple of open mics. I had shows lined up before COVID hit, and it was just an amazing experience. And if I can continue to do it, even if I never become famous, if I can just continue to do it, meet new people, make people laugh, just have something to kind of release energy and positive vibes, I'm all in on that.
Right. That's awesome.
And for yourself,
I think just continue to take better care of myself. I it's never fun to admit things that we screwed up on, but it's healthy to do, and it takes courage.
right,
From 2011 and 2010 to 2020, I probably gained 100 pounds, and you know what? I'm very much like a data numbers driven person. That's a pound a month. It is not hard to gain a pound in 1 month. It happens. It can happen so sneaky, and it's just the cumulative effect. Over the last year, I've lost 20 pounds. And I think one thing I'm trying to focus on now is that I do not need to lose 80 pounds in the next 4 months.
right.
I can lose 1 to 2 pounds for the next 5 years. That's losing a pound a month is super doable and it's reasonable. And that's kind of my mindset. It's like, what can I do to lose 1 to 2 pounds a month for the next 5 years and get back to a healthy weight? And it doesn't, let's set realistic goals so that
Mhm.
the likelihood of success. And it's just, Like right now, it's just little stuff. Like don't if you want junk food, like make yourself walk to the grocery store to Circle K to get it. Don't leave any in your house. You know, like there's been so many times, it's 9 p.m. Screw it. I don't want to go out to get junk food, so I just won't eat anything. You know, so it's just, and you can save £1 a month doing that. You know, it doesn't have to be a massive transformation. It can just be little smaller changes. So that's one thing. And I just love to take, if over the next 5 years, if I could take like 3 great trips with at least one other person. I've done a lot of solo stuff in my life, like during, moved to Mexico, but went to all my friends went to University of Illinois. I went somewhere else. Went to Mexico by myself. Went on a big Euro trip by myself. Moved to Phoenix by myself. But the best moment of 2020 for me was one of my best friend's weddings right before COVID went crazy in South Africa. And I'd never, spending 6 days in a group of like 12 people was pretty foreign to me. I'm the type of person I'll spend 2 hours a day with other people and then the rest by myself. So to be around others all day, you know, not something supernatural to me, but it was great. And so again, realistic goals. I'm not saying I'm going to take a million trips with friends, but
Right.
how about by like next fall 2021, I'll take one trip with even just one friend, even if it's a 3-day trip, So I'd love to do some traveling with friends. And absolutely a serious, I'd love to be married 5 years from now. We'll see what happens, but that's definitely, the mindset. So we'll see. But, happy with how life's going. And I feel like certainly fortunate and feel like things are on the right track. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you have goals and you are very self-aware of everything that is around you, which is excellent. I think that's an excellent recipe for success.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
a lot of the times, people don't have any goals or aren't aware of their flaws, and so they don't work on them.
Hmm.
And the fact that you have both acknowledge some of your shortcomings and are setting goals, clear goals of what you want, um, I think you're gonna have nothing but
Right.
success moving forward,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Thank you. Today, for whatever reason, I woke up super low energy and I ate like crap today, but at least I was aware of what was going on. And since the last 4 hours, I was like, all right, it's just because you've eaten like crap before 5 p.m., you can still eat healthy in the evening. You don't have to, you don't have to sell the day short, sell the week short because you had one bad day.
Exactly. No, there's always gonna be those days where
It's,
you take
yeah,
a loss, but you get back up,
you
right?
can have a fresh start at any moment of the day.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's something that I try to think about when it comes to like New Year's resolutions. It's like, why wait till New Year's?
Right, absolutely.
If you see a problem, say, hey, you know what? Today I'm gonna take step one and get the ball rolling.
Mhm.
No, but that's awesome, man. I'm happy to see that you're happy and that
Yeah,
and you're being successful, man.
cool. Well, if you ever want to come out to Arizona, we got a space for you, man.
Oh, absolutely, dude. I
The
I might
mountains
take
are
you up on that
gorgeous.
offer in the spring.
Hopefully, if things get more chill,
Oh, dude, yeah, this is gonna be a crappy winter, but I'm sure by the time that we hit summer,
April, May, yeah,
life will be so much better. I
awesome.
get that feeling. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun. Thanks.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.